Sauron's final defeat was a turning point, the end of an era of terror. But while the shadow of Sauron faded, something far older and equally sinister continued to lurk. Shelob, the terrifying last child of Ungoliant, was still crawled deep in the mountains of Mordor, far from the reach of the ring-bearers. But the question remains, what happened to her after Sauron fell? We all know she was no servant of Sauron, but did she perish like so many of Sauron's servants? Or is it possible that this ancient evil survived, lying in wait for the next unwary traveller? Shelob was no ordinary creature. She had a history older than Sauron himself. Could she still be alive, hiding in the dark places of the world? To begin with, we need to look back at her origins. Shelob wasn't just a giant spider. She was the daughter of Ungoliant, a being so powerful that she once terrorized even the Valar, the gods of Middle-earth. Ungoliant herself had devoured the light of the two trees, plunging the world into darkness long before Sauron rose to power. Shelob, her offspring, inherited that insatiable hunger. Unlike many of the dark creatures in Mordor, Shelob did not serve Sauron directly. She was her own master, driven by her own primal needs. She lived in the mountains of Ephel-Duath, feeding on whatever wandered into her lair, and Sauron tolerated her presence because she helped guard the borders of his realm. But she wasn't dependent on him. She didn't need the One Ring to survive. So, when Sauron was defeated, would Shelob have cared? Probably not. She was a force of evil in her own right, bound not by Sauron's will but by her ancient, insatiable hunger. During the War of the Ring, Shelob came terrifyingly close to changing the fate of Middle-earth herself. Remember Frodo's journey into the dark tunnels of Cirith Ungol? It was there that Shelob struck, nearly killing the ring-bearer with a single venomous bite. Samwise Gamgee fought bravely to fend her off, and in a rare moment of vulnerability, Shelob fled back into the shadows, gravely wounded. But, and this is crucial, she wasn't dead. Shelob escaped to the dark recesses of her lair, biding her time, likely waiting to regain her strength. If she could survive that encounter, what else could she endure? Let's not forget, Shelob's lair was a place of immense power, a web of darkness that she had spun over centuries. It was a fortress hidden deep within the mountains. While Sauron's tower crumbled and his armies scattered, Shelob could have easily withdrawn further into her domain, far from the light of day, waiting for her wounds to heal. Could she have survived even after Sauron's fall? Her survival instincts were unmatched, and she had no allegiance to Sauron's cause. The idea that Shelob simply vanished along with the Dark Lord seems far too simple for such a creature. Now, let's get to the heart of the mystery. What happened to Shelob after Sauron was defeated? There are a few theories out there, and each one offers a glimpse into the dark possibilities of her fate. Some believe that after the fall of Sauron, the dark creatures of Mordor, Shelob included, simply withered away. Without the power of the Dark Lord feeding the land with evil energy, these creatures might have lost their source of strength. It's possible that Shelob, already weakened from her encounter with Sam, succumbed to her wounds or to the changing world around her. But this theory feels a little underwhelming, doesn't it? Shelob was no ordinary spider. She had survived for ages before Sauron's rise and had never relied on him for her survival. So, the idea that she would just die off seems too simplistic. A more compelling theory is that Shelob, being an independent force of darkness, continued to live on after Sauron's defeat. She had survived for millennia without Sauron, and there's no reason to think she couldn't survive without him again. Shelob's lair, hidden deep in the mountains, was the perfect refuge. It's possible that she retreated further into her dark tunnels, avoiding the changes happening in the world above. Unlike the orcs and other creatures who depended on Sauron's will to continue their evil deeds, Shelob's evil was her own. Her hunger for flesh and darkness didn't vanish with the fall of the Dark Lord. To fully grasp what may have become of Shelob, it's essential to understand her true nature. Shelob wasn't just a giant predator in the wilderness. She represented something far more terrifying. She was the last child of Ungoliant, the primeval force of darkness that once devoured the light of the world itself. Ungoliant's insatiable hunger for power and light was passed down to Shelob, making her far more than a mere beast. She was a living embodiment of corruption, darkness, and endless hunger. Unlike Sauron, who sought control through domination, Shelob's evil was primal and instinctive, driven by a relentless urge to consume. This makes her one of the most ancient and terrifying beings left in Middle-earth. But what does that mean for her survival? Shelob's nature suggests she might not have needed Sauron's dark influence to continue her existence. Her evil came from a deeper, more timeless place. When Sauron fell, Shelob's hunger likely remained undiminished, lurking in her dark lair, waiting for her next victim. Here's where it gets interesting. Shelob's very essence was tied to a darkness that predated Sauron by millennia. So, while the world above changed, would a creature like Shelob ever truly die? After Sauron's fall, Middle-earth entered the Fourth Age, a time of relative peace and restoration. The great kingdoms of men, under Aragorn's rule, thrived, and the elves began their journey to the west. But just because the great battles were over, it doesn't mean every dark corner of the world was suddenly safe. Shelob's lair in the mountains of Ephel-Duath likely remained undisturbed. Think about it. While Sauron's orcs were scattered and the great fortresses of evil were torn down, who would venture into the depths of Mordor to confront a creature like Shelob? Her tunnels were hidden, deep beneath the mountains where few dared to go. It's entirely possible that Shelob continued her reign of terror, hunting anything foolish enough to wander into her web. Without Sauron's armies around, there would have been fewer disturbances, allowing her to rebuild her strength in the darkness. Could it be that Shelob simply outlasted everyone, remaining an eternal threat in the forgotten corners of Middle-earth? Now let's consider another possibility, one that's even more unsettling. Could Shelob have thrived after the fall of Sauron? With the Dark Lord gone and the power of Mordor shattered, Shelob may have found herself with fewer competitors and more room to spread her dark influence. Remember, Shelob wasn't just confined to her lair. The lands to the east and south of Mordor were largely unexplored in Tolkien's writings. What if Shelob, regaining her strength, moved into these uncharted territories, seeking out new hunting grounds? Without Sauron's control over the lands, she could have roamed freely, perhaps even growing more powerful in the absence of other dark forces. And here's a chilling thought. While the great cities of men and elves rebuilt their kingdoms, could Shelob have been building something far darker in the shadows? With no one left to challenge her, it's possible that she thrived, growing larger and more dangerous than ever before. Could Shelob have left her dark tunnels to spread her influence in the far reaches of the world? Could there be legends in distant lands about a monstrous spider that hunts the night? This very thought makes you wonder, how far could Shelob's hunger take her? One of the most fascinating aspects of Shelob's story is that Tolkien never gives us a definitive answer about her fate. Unlike Sauron, who has a clear end in The Lord of the Rings, Shelob's story is left open, shrouded in mystery. This lack of closure has fueled endless speculation among fans, and it's one of the reasons Shelob remains such a haunting figure in Tolkien's world. Tolkien was a master of creating depth in his world, often hinting at histories and creatures far older than the central conflict of The Lord of the Rings. Shelob, as the last remnant of Ungoliant's line, represents that connection to the ancient, primal evils of Middle-earth. Even though the Age of Men had begun, the world was still full of dark corners, places where the old terrors might still lurk. Shelob's legacy lives on in these shadows. In Tolkien's earlier works, such as the Silmarillion, we see hints of monstrous spiders terrorizing the world, and Shelob carries that tradition into the Third Age. Even if she did die after Sauron's fall, her presence, her legacy, is undeniable. Her name alone strikes fear into those who remember her tale. She represents the idea that evil never truly dies. It may retreat, but it waits, growing in the darkness until the time is right to strike again. In the minds of those who survived the War of the Ring, Shelob's shadow might have continued to loom large, an eternal symbol of fear and corruption. So, what really happened to Shelob? Did she perish quietly in the aftermath of Sauron's defeat? Or does she still linger, hidden in the dark corners of Middle-earth, waiting for her next victim? It's a mystery Tolkien left unanswered, and that's what makes Shelob such a terrifying figure. Her story doesn't end when Sauron falls. What do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dive into the mysteries of Middle-earth, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights into Tolkien's incredible world.